Daniel, ABC News, Orlando, Florida.
With just 2 weeks to go until polling day, the brawl over jobs and Medicare is heating up. The Prime Minister has accused Labor of running a disgraceful scare campaign about the future of Medicare, while the opposition leader is talking about getting young people into jobs. Here's political reporter Jane Norman.
It's a machine that would intrigue any Prime Minister.
The ultimate nutcracker.
Malcolm Turnbull's travelled to Lismore to crack Page, a northern New South Wales seat Labor is confident it can snatch.
Very good, very superior macadamia.
Because the nuts are up.
The election script was pitch perfect at a company that's grown a multi-million-dollar export market.
We have been taking big advantage of free trade agreements.
Jobs and growth in regional Australia, driven by those big export trade deals. Jobs and growth.
And with pre-poll voting underway, Malcolm Turnbull is tightening the screws on an opponent, accusing him of trying to end universal health care.
What he is running is a disgraceful scare campaign.
With the help of the Labor luminary who delivered it.
You don't set up a Medicare privatisation task force unless you aim to privatise Medicare.
The government is considering outsourcing the payment system, but the Prime Minister is adamant.
Medicare will never, ever be privatised. Medicare will never, ever be sold.
The payment system of Medicare is the heart of the Medicare system. One payer.
You help us, we'll help you.
Further south, in a state that's struggling with a youth unemployment figure well above the national average, the opposition leader unveiled Labor's plan to get young people into jobs.
This is a practical plan to help young people get work.
6-month taxpayer-funded internships paid at the minimum wage. 20,000 would be offered each year, and they'd be targeted at those who've been unemployed for more than 12 months and those with no post-school qualifications.
That is just a blatant lie.
In Canberra, the workplace battle flared as the Employment Minister and her shadow slugged it out.
The facts will prove otherwise.
The Minister declared the coalition will adopt the majority of the Trade Union Royal Commission recommendations. The Prime Minister's campaign briefly veered off course after he hosted a multi-faith iftar dinner in Sydney last night. It was intended to unite, but was derailed when it emerged one guest, a senior Muslim cleric, had previously condemned homosexuality. Today, Malcolm Turnbull challenged him to recant.
Had I known that the Sheikh had made those remarks, he would not have been invited to the iftar.
But he noted he's just one voice in a Muslim community 500,000 strong. Jane Norman, ABC News, Sydney.
The government's argument that negative gearing benefits mainly average Australians has been undermined by documents from its own Treasury. An ABC Freedom of Information investigation has revealed most of the advantages of the tax break go to high-income earners. Dan Conifer reports.
Two major policy flashpoints of this campaign have been Labor's plans to limit negative gearing to new housing and cut the capital gains tax discount in half. The government says the policies would be a disaster for ordinary Australians.
The vast majority of people who are negative gearing properties, that is to say they're offsetting a net rental loss against their personal income, are got taxable income of $80,000 or less. That's a fact.
Labor maintains these are long overdue reforms.
Let's not fall for one of the big lies of the Liberal Party that somehow negative gearing is a Robin Hood tax concession which lifts the poor out of poverty. That's rubbish.
But the ABC has obtained advice written for Treasury which says more than half of the tax benefits of negative gearing go to the top 20% of incomes, with those in the bottom 20% getting just over 5% of the benefit. And it found the capital gains tax discount overwhelmingly benefits high-income earners, with the top 10% accounting for nearly 3/4 of the tax savings. And in the long run, the combined effect of Labor's proposals could add up to $6 billion a year to the budget bottom line.
The federal government is under pressure to ban all live cattle exports to Vietnam after shocking footage emerged of animal cruelty. The industry has suspended trade to the feedlot and group of abattoirs allegedly involved, describing the videos as inexcusable. But a letter obtained by the ABC suggests some within the live animal trade are paying lip service to the industry animals' welfare promises.
Live export has been propelled into the election campaign after last night's revelations of Australian cattle being sledgehammered in Vietnam.
When something goes off the rails, as it clearly has in these 3 abattoirs in Vietnam, we suspend exports to them and launch a proper investigation, and there will be consequences.
Well, we clearly need stronger rules. We need an independent Office of Animal Welfare.
The major parties condemned, but stopped short of a ban.
The government has to shut it down.
Independent MP Andrew Wilkie wants it stopped. The RSPCA is calling for an immediate suspension of trade to Vietnam.
Until Australia can be satisfied that the animal welfare standards it's attempted to impose are actually being enforced.
3 approved Vietnamese abattoirs have been suspended, but hundreds remain open to Australian animals and vulnerable to further supply chain breaches.
If people are being too clever by half, then that needs to be exposed.
The Live Exporters Council has publicly promised welfare is a priority. But the ABC has obtained an industry email from Meat and Livestock Australia's manager in Vietnam, which tells a different story. If you put them under pressure, they will beat the system, says the MLA's Dr Michael Patching, who urges Australian exporters to make the Vietnamese companies more profitable and less emphasis on compliance to regulations.
The thrust of that argument is essentially saying it's better to use the carrot than the stick.
Whether or not the stick is taken to Australia's live export industry remains to be seen. James Thomas, ABC News.